Questions or comments for our guests? Join the conversation in our Facebook live stream. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Well, aloha, thanks for tuning in here to another edition of Spotlight Now here on Hawaii News Now. We are going to get to our first guest, Governor David Ige, in just a few moments. But before we begin, we always want to call out those of you who are watching at home to engage in the conversation. You can head over to Facebook and enter your question and comments in the Facebook session, or you can also send an email to us at spotlightnow@hawaiinewsnow.com.
And we already have some of those emails, and we will be posing those questions to our first guest today, and that is former Governor David Ige. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you. You know, this is different during the pandemic. Most of our sessions were virtual, so it's great to actually see you in person.
Yeah, it is so good, and you really, it is a walk down memory lane because the three of us, almost weekly, I think, especially in those first few days, first few weeks of COVID, we're really talking a lot and thinking about, where we are then to now. I mean, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to thank both of you for helping us through that really difficult period. You guys were a conduit of information, and we knew how important it was to be in connection with the people of Hawaii and share as much information as we had. So it really is great to be here in person, but clearly you contributed to Hawaii's success in dealing with the pandemic.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean, luckily we still have a job, so I guess some things are going right. First off, Governor, tell us what you've been up to. It has been a little more than a year now, I think, since you've officially been out of office. Give the viewers watching an update on what life has been like for you.
You know, it's great to be retired in my position because you get to work on the things that you really care about. And so, as both of you know, education has been a big part of one of the things that I care about. And so I'm still active and connected with the Western Governors Foundation, and it's a 501c3 that is connected to the Western Governors, and we've been working on a project now for 4 years about training the next generation of young leaders to think about public service and to really step up to the challenge.
Yeah, public service does seem like it's in a pretty tough spot when we think about, we're in the midst of a, epic government shutdown, all of these systems sort of falling apart and, regardless of your politics, government is not working in this moment. What is your take on what is happening at the federal level? And then we'll get to state politics in a minute.
Well, I do think that it's been a challenge. The federal government really has gotten so partisan that it doesn't really work. There's no mechanism to focus on serving the public and really finding common ground and finding solutions that the public benefits from.
During your time as governor, you dealt with President Trump working hand in hand with the White House during the pandemic, especially. What can you tell us about the working dynamics between your administration and the Trump administration, and maybe any differences you see this time around in the way this administration is leading?
It's 180 degrees different. I can tell you that Trump 2.0 is very, very different than Trump 1.0. I would say that there were at least a collection of cabinet members who took the job seriously and was focused on helping President Trump be successful as president. So, I think for me personally, working through his chief of staffs like we always do. Jim Mattis was his first chief of staff, who I think was the consummate professional. He got what the responsibilities of the president were and was committed to follow the law and the Constitution in taking action and advising the president about what things could and could not be done. clearly in Trump 2.0, I mean, there is no professional, the only criteria for all of the cabinet members is whether you're willing to do whatever the president says, regardless of whether it's legal or constitutional. And so you see this chaos that erupts because there's no following the rule of law anymore. It really is to the whim of the president. And there's no real strategic direction in so many areas that, there's a lot of chaos.
Yeah, I mean, given that all the gatekeepers are essentially gone in what you're describing, what is your biggest concern for Hawaii? When we look at the changes from the federal level, we've seen, there's just different priorities when it comes to, food nutrition or education or different, we talk to any number of nonprofit leaders or climate change. I mean, the list goes on and on, but what is your biggest fear for the residents of Hawaii, knowing what you know about how reliant we are on federal programs?
I am very much concerned because the big, beautiful bill is terrible, especially in terms of safety net. In Hawaii, we've always believed that health care is a right, not a privilege, and we've really worked hard to ensure that everyone has access so that it's not about how much money you have. Everyone should be able to keep healthy and productive. And clearly, the actions taken by Congress, cutting of the safety net, SNAP benefits will be disappearing. Medicaid is under siege. And that really will have a huge impact to our community, especially because all of us expect to get access to health care in one way, shape, or form.
We spoke here last week with Governor Josh Green, who provided an update on some of the things that he's having to work with the administration on. And one of those things is the expiration of the military land leases and the renegotiation of how the military intersects with Hawaii moving forward. During this time, he is navigating through the voice of the Native Hawaiian community, what's best for the people of Hawaii, but also realistic about what the military is willing to succeed or to give up to Hawaii as a whole. What are your overall thoughts on the negotiations and any dynamics that you may have experienced in dealing with military leaders and how flexible they may be to compromise to help Hawaii further than what they already are doing?
Let's be very clear, right? Hawaii has significant strategic importance to defense of the country. Being out here in the Pacific, we have all of the leadership of all branches of the military centered in Hawaii. So I think both the state of Hawaii and the military leaders recognize that strategic importance. At the same time, I think from the citizens' perspective, clearly the investments made by the federal government, the jobs created, Pearl Harbor is the largest industrial employer. They pay well. They provide a lot of skilled trades positions as well as skilled positions and degree granting kind of levels of positions that clearly provide important employment to our community. So we definitely want to be able to extend the leases, but we do want to ensure that Hawaii benefits from the federal government's use of state lands.
I'm interested, when you're seeing all this, all of these issues unfold, do you ever feel like, put me in, coach, like I want to be there?
I feel very comfortable at my position and know that state government is in good hands, that there's lots of things that carry forward. I am always willing and able to respond when people call or have questions, and I have responded to different leaders who've called for advice or insight. I think that, Hawaii is just a very special place, and it does take a lot of work to ensure that we don't lose that. There are many, many challenges that I think we all face as a community.
I want to get your thoughts on some local politics that are happening here. The race for the second congressional seat, currently occupied by Jill Tochiki, is getting to be a pretty crowded field. We'll start off with the Democratic ticket. There's two challengers within the party that are now, I'm sorry, this is for the Ed Case seat. So a seat occupied by Ed Case. Two challengers, a state representative as well as a state senator, that are seeking to challenge the incumbent. Your thoughts overall on the CD1 race with Ed Case and the challengers coming from the Democratic Party?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. At first, I was nervous because you were talking about Congresswoman Tochiki, and I didn't hear that, so I thought I was like totally disconnected. But I've worked with Ed for 3 decades now. I know him. He shares the values that I feel most important, and that sense of community. So, I haven't been asked by Ed, but I support him. I think he's done a terrific job in CD1. He has been passionate and very active, as he always is. He takes his responsibilities as congressperson very seriously. He works very hard to seek input from people, and he's had a number of town meetings and community meetings. He is constantly engaged with the public. During this tumultuous and chaotic time in the nation's capital, I really do think that experience and seniority matters. And Ed's on the right committees. He's on appropriations. He's on defense. He's on Homeland Security, which is 3 very, very important areas for him to be involved with. So, as I said, I haven't been asked by him, but I support him. I think he's done a good job.
So, the two challengers that Ryan referenced, Senator Jared Keohokalole and Representative Della Al-Baladi, you know them well as well, obviously worked
Yes.
with both. So given the choice of the 3, you're sticking with the incumbent.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's go to that other race, CD2, Jill Tochiki being challenged now by Senator Brenton Owa. What are your thoughts on the senator stepping into that race?
Again, it's the same thing. I really do think that experience matters. I think Jill has done a terrific job in representing the neighbor islands, and their needs are very different, but she's again been very active as well in engaging with the community. She's advocated, especially for us here in Hawaii. We definitely have a different sense of community than many other states, and I think she's done a terrific job in looking out for Hawaii's interests and being an advocate.
One of the campaign message points from Senator Owa is that the House and the Senate are currently controlled by the Republican Party, and it's best to maybe have someone from the Republican Party representing from Hawaii to be a part of that majority in Congress. Do you think that there's any weight to that, to having having a Republican from Hawaii in that majority seat representing us in Hawaii, and how do you think that will be an effective campaign point for him?
Well, I would just kind of point to the fact that Hawaii has benefited even when the Republicans were in charge of the Congress. We've had a strong congressional delegation that learned how to deal with being in the minority. So I don't think that that necessarily adds any benefit. And I think most importantly, if you look at Brenton's values compared to what the national agenda is, they're totally opposite to what they're doing. The Republican Party is suing Kamehameha schools and trying to destroy the whole process of providing for Hawaiians and Native Hawaiian in terms of education. And Brenton's going to be part of that. It remains to be seen what value he can bring as a member of the majority party with the values that he brings to Washington.
Do you think you're going to get out there and campaign this season?
Sounds
Sounds like you're doing it now.
No,
so.
I'm not. I'm willing to help in different areas, but I prefer not to, but
Well, we also want to get your thoughts on another rumbling that has been going on. A lot of maybe attention locally, but also nationally has been placed to our current governor, Governor Green, about potential higher office there. He has been, there's been whispers on the national level of his interest in potentially seeking a higher office, or other people who are interested in him and pushing him further into maybe a higher office or a run for the presidency. Does that at all surprise you about, a potential run by Governor Green, maybe not this term, but in the future for a higher seat?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think anybody who knows Josh and has worked with him has recognized that he has always, even from when he started in the House, he had always pointed to bigger challenges. So I'm not surprised. But, I really do think that being governor is so different than being president. And, for me, I enjoy being governor of the state of Hawaii. It is interacting with the community and really being able to appreciate that the overwhelming majority of our citizens really do believe that sometimes many issues are more important from the community perspective than they are the individual personal rights and those kinds of things. And we see it over and over again, right? During disasters, the community steps up. They're willing to do whatever it takes to be helpful. And it is so different now at the national level that, it's mind-boggling. But not surprising. I can't even imagine what it would take to organize a nationwide campaign. I mean, campaigning for governor is tough enough. Trying to campaign statewide, trying to cover the nation and 50 states are so different from each other is truly something that I would not even attempt to think about.
Well, if I remember correctly, you've never lost a race. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so given your track record, is there an office that you're still looking at? I know that you said you're comfortable as is, but you are still young and obviously have a lot of thoughts and aloha for Hawaii. Is there space for you? Is there something that you would explore going forward?
I am not exploring anything. I enjoy what I'm doing and being able to pick and choose. I still care about education. I really want to continue to work to make public schools first choice for our community. I see so many families struggling to make ends meet, and it breaks my heart that many don't consider a public education as viable. And yet, we have seen just tremendous success in our public schools. I think early college is really a game changer in the sense that, going to a public school today can save a family 2 years of college because you can complete an Associate of Arts degree while you're a high school student. And I think that makes a huge difference for many families. So it really is about trying to ensure that public schools are viable and that it can be the first choice for many families.
I want to bring up something that has come up recently, and it's concerning public schools. And one of your initiatives during your time as governor was really cooling classrooms. And there has been some criticism about what has happened during your administration and the costs that it has now come into for sustaining that program. What is your overall thoughts on some of the criticism that may be coming out now about that initiative that you had to cool the classrooms?
I think, Ryan, sometimes people forget, right? It was 10 years ago, if you remember. And we had the hottest summer on record. I do remember talking to students and talking about classrooms that were 80, 90 degrees hot. And the whole notion that, it is impossible to think about thinking in that kind of environment. So, I was proud that we made that investment, $100 million to improve the environment that we expect our children to learn in. And granted, it was something that we tried to do quickly because we didn't want to have another summer where kids were just melting in the classrooms. And I'm proud of the work and the progress that we made. Are there things that we could have done better? Yeah, I mean, there always is. But if you talk to those students who benefited in 1,000 classrooms statewide, I think they would tell you, at least for the next couple summers, it made a huge difference in their learning.
Sticking with energy policy, we're seeing the Trump administration really roll back a lot of the solar credits and really change the clean energy initiatives. One of the things that you had championed was really, Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative and trying to get us to clean energy 2045. Given the changes that you're seeing and how hard you worked on that, are you worried that that goal won't be met because of what's happening at the federal level?
I think that we've seen enough progress in the technology, and because for at least 5-10 years now, remember we passed that initiative in 2015, so it's been 10 years now. The industry has responded, and we've seen tremendous progress in the price of PV panels, and battery storage has dropped tremendously. And there are so many other businesses that are really looking at how can we help facilitate this energy transition. So, I think the president and the Republicans want to pretend like climate change is not real. I think the whole planet recognizes, with the crazy weather, the storms, and everything that's happened, that climate change is real. And the quicker we make this energy transition, the better off all of our communities and the planet will be.
I want to also get your thought on another headline that continues to make news, and that's the status of Aloha Stadium, set for demolition soon. This was a project that came up towards the end of your time as governor. Some disagreements between how at the time you thought that should be structured from the legislature when it came to your office. You had a different mechanism and thought about how the project should proceed. Now that it is moving forward, I wanted to get your thoughts on just how long it's taken to get here and the ultimate path that Aloha Stadium is now on.
Well, I'm glad that they're getting to the point of starting, right? I know that I was criticized as I was leaving office that I didn't help facilitate it happening sooner. I think hindsight is 20/20 now, and people thought it was a simple thing, and doing this public-private partnership has actually delayed the project, and it has actually taken longer than people anticipated. I'm glad that it's getting off the ground. I am always concerned about my concern about this public-private partnership is that the private sector partners are more interested in housing than the stadium. And I'm concerned that they will sacrifice what we really need in a stadium on the assumption that the government's on the hook, and they will cover whatever shortfalls that the stadium incurs. And, we'll have to see how that proceeds. I'm glad, Brian, I'm a Rainbow fan. I'm a graduate of the University of Hawaii, a proud graduate. And I'm glad that they're finally going to get started on a stadium.
Okay, we are almost out of time, but I want to get a little bit more about just, David Ige, the private citizen. Sort of tell us a little bit about how you fill your time now that I know that you're doing things with the Western Governors Association and, of course, are engaged intellectually, but you have more time for running. Like, what are you doing to fill your days?
Well, for the first time since I graduated from college virtually, I am able to put health first. It's funny when you always ask people what's most important, they will say health, but then you never get around to. So I am running 3 days a week. My doctor suggested that I also start weight training. So I'm doing weight training three times a week. So, I feel good. I feel great about my physical health. 2025 has been just a remarkable year for the Ige family. 2 of my kids got married. My oldest daughter, Lauren, got married in March, and my new son-in-law, Alan Liu, is an entrepreneur and CEO of a startup. My youngest son, Matthew, got married on June 1st, and my daughter-in-law, Hallie, is a software engineer, just like Matt. And so, that's really planning for 2 weddings is a horrendous challenge, and I'm glad that it happened. But and they both were in Hawaii, which was really nice.
Well, we do want to mention another thing that happened was this portrait unveiling that happened just a few weeks ago. So this will be joining the other governors that are in, on the 5th floor in the ceremonial room. Talk about your thoughts. This was the first time you saw it. What was your reaction, and is your reaction to this portrait that will now join the other former governors?
Planning on the portrait was just such a stressful thing, right? I mean, State Foundation is just talking about this is going to be your legacy. This is the formal thing that people will see about you, right? And what it looks like and all of that, the setting. So it was really, really stressful trying to think about what setting would I want to be in? What do I wear? How do I present? And so, at first it was like, I don't want to do this. But working with the State Foundation, Kirk Kurokawa was selected, and he is such a humble and talented artist. He really made the process enjoyable for all the stress that there was. And, he was very helpful with what to wear. And I did decide that I wanted it in my office because that's where I spent most of my time. And he helped us look at different settings within the office, different machinations about where the portrait would be, and we came up with the final solution. And I was very nervous until I saw the portrait, and I think he really captured who I am. And we talked about a couple other things about family being important, and he included in the background kind of a family portrait. In fact, Ryan, I think that was the portrait that I had in my office that you took.
You took that picture?
Yes.
No
yes,
way.
So you're connected, right? You're going to be part of that portrait forever.
I love that little trivia.
And I mean, and how to incorporate being the first Okinawan governor and other things that I think were really important to me, that he worked into the portrait, that really on all fronts, Kirk exceeded my expectations for the portrait.
Let's ask you one quick question, and then we're going to let you go. This is from Courtney, who wrote in. Thanks, Courtney. She says, what 3 words would you like people to remember you as our past governor?
Boy, what 3 words would I think it would be thoughtful, compassionate, and really courageous, because of all the things and all the issues that we took head on behalf of the people of Hawaii.
Oh, that's a wonderful way to leave us. Thank you so much, sir. We'll be looking forward to hearing about your political future next time you're on. How about that?
Okay.
Governor David Ige, thanks for being here. On the other side, we're going to be talking to Josh Wisch of the Holomua Collective. Some very interesting data about the status of the middle class in Hawaii. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome back to Spotlight. Now we're going to continue on in our show, but again, we want to remind all of you to continue to send in your questions and comments for our guests. You can head over to Facebook, or you can send us your questions here at spotlightnow@hawaiinewsnow.com.
And we have Josh Wisch back from Holomua Collective, Executive Director there. They do amazing work. We had you on last year around this time. You were presenting a survey, and now we have the results of an updated survey. And having had a sort of sneak peek of this, I feel like it's even worse.
Yes, I think that's fair. And just for anyone who didn't see last year, just a quick reminder for everybody about why our organization does this survey. Holomua Collective is a local nonprofit, and our mission really is to try to provide hope that all local working families can stay in Hawaii. And we do that through a mix of policy work, data work like this, and a lot of trying to bring together different voices from different sectors to try to find solutions. And so this is the second year that we're doing this survey, and it is a survey this year of over 3,000 locally employed folks, overwhelmingly lifetime or long-time residents, 63% lifetime, 20% 20 years or more. And these are folks who would generally be considered in the middle to upper middle income. The overwhelming majority of people in the survey make $100,000 a year or more in a median household size of 3.
Okay, let's take a look. You brought us some slides today and look at the household income levels just to kind of illustrate a little bit more about exactly who we're talking about. And so tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here in terms of, like, you did lay out how long they've lived here. These are folks who make decent money, I mean, if you look at that. But job satisfaction, not so great.
Well, actually, the job satisfaction, you take a look
and
you see...
I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's okay. When you take a look at this, yeah, these over 60 to close to 70% of people in this are either very or somewhat satisfied with their jobs. And one of the ways that I've always looked at this survey is that it is a complement in many ways to the ALICE survey and kind of in conversation with that survey. Because when you take a look at this, you see that a huge number of these folks are making what most people would think should be a pretty comfortable income. And you're also looking at folks who are overwhelmingly registered voters. Most of these folks have college degrees or more. And so when you take a look at the income level here versus the income level in ALICE, I think one of the things it shows us is a nice cross-section of the entire state.
Okay.
And next thing we want to look at is this ability to live from paycheck to paycheck. It's something that we hear about all the time, often campaigning, during the campaign season. Talk to us about what this graph shows about what your study found.
Yeah, and I think what makes this slide particularly interesting is, again, when you consider who it represents. So take a look at this again, considering that over 60% of the people in our survey make $100,000 a year or more. And of that survey population, you've got over 70% saying it is either very or somewhat difficult to live paycheck to paycheck. And we also generally see this in almost every single income level within our survey. And so, of course, it gets a little bit lower as the incomes get higher, but still, you're seeing that people are struggling. And that's a dynamic that we're all familiar with because we live in this state where you have salaries that are generally lower than that of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but you have cost of living that rivals what you see in Los Angeles, which is a pretty unique situation across the country.
Yeah, so we're not getting paid enough to deal with how expensive it is to be here. And I wondered the
Correct.
consequence of that is that we see our friends and neighbors moving to other places, places like Las Vegas or different parts of the country that have a lower cost of living. Let's take a look at that because this one I found particularly troubling.
This one is particularly troubling, and it has also gotten a bit worse than last year. So the short version on this slide, what you're seeing, is 3/4 of the people in our survey. And again, these are locally employed, longtime local residents. 3/4 of them said either yes or unsure when asked, do you think you're going to need to move to a less expensive state? And that would be one thing, and I could see some people almost saying, well, sure, I mean, yes or unsure, who knows, nobody knows the future. It's the second part of it that actually causes me the most trouble, because the second part is when you ask, when do you think you're going to need to move? And when you start putting a number to it, I think it gets beyond just hypotheticals, and it starts to look like planning. And so out of those 3/4 who say yes or unsure, 60% say that they're going to have to move within the next 5 years or less. And one other thing that I'll add to this, which I think is good to keep in mind, is there was someone I was talking to a couple of years ago, and he had a great insight, I thought, which was 20, 30 years ago, if you were looking to leave Hawaii, but you wanted to maintain a Hawaii connection, you pretty much had Vegas as an option, right? And if you didn't want to move to Vegas, there weren't many places you could go. But now it's Vegas, it's Oregon, it's California, it's North Carolina, it's Seattle. And my friend had pointed out that the barrier to exit has gone down. And so you've got more people on the continent saying, hey, we're here and it's fine. Why don't you come out here and join us? Which I think might be part of why you're seeing this acceleration.
Well, and one of the other things that we often hear about is just the ability for people to own a home. And this next slide really kind of also helps to highlight some of those concerns of home ownership in Hawaii.
Yeah, and what you're seeing here is when you've got 67% of people saying that they're either very or somewhat unhopeful that they're going to be able to own a home within the next 5 years, you know that you've got a real challenge. And this ties into the fact that when we ask people what are the biggest cost of living impacts that you're seeing, the runaway number one was the cost of housing. And the number two were wages. And so, which also ties into a lot of the work that we're doing right now is focused on trying to create a dedicated local housing market, which is something that a lot of the people in our survey said they wanted to see, and also trying to work on workforce development. And one of the things we're seeing there is that even though there are a lot of great workforce development programs, some of the people who most need those in like the 18 to 24 bracket are just not aware that they exist. And so some of this is trying to grab that low-hanging fruit of making people aware of what's out there.
I'm curious, you know, when you take all of this together and it seems that people are making six figures, but they still they don't hope for a home, or they don't think a home is within reach, and that, you know, a vast majority of those are willing to or considering leaving. Where does that leave us who decide that they want to stay? I mean, when we lose our friends and neighbors, you know, of course we lose the fabric of our community, and there is sort of a cultural or a community loss, but there's also a sort of a structural foundation loss to the economy and to services. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Oh, 100%. I think in addition to the cultural aspect, which is huge, and I've lived in Hawaii now for a little bit over 20 years. I married in, my wife is the local. And even just over those 20 years, I've seen the changes of when I first came to Hawaii and now, and some of the changes that I don't like that you just see on a day-to-day basis. But beyond that, yeah, when you take a look at these folks who are saying that they might have to leave, and they have enough money to leave, then a few things happen. One is you start risking an iceberg-sized chunk of the tax base, which is going to impact everybody in the state because it's that tax base that pays for all of our services. The other thing is, for anyone who might be at home thinking, there but for the grace of God go I, I'm glad that this isn't going to be a problem for me or my family, but it's still going to be a problem because you depend on the people who are leaving. And pulling in one personal anecdote, in the last few years, I've had 2 to 3 doctor's appointments end with my doctor saying, I need to get you another doctor because my husband and I are moving to Utah or to Oregon or to Seattle. And so it's healthcare workers, it's teachers, firefighters, first responders. These are the folks who are the fabric of the community in so many ways, and we're losing them.
Given, you know, what's happening now with our current political landscape and what's happening at the federal level with restrictions to federal cuts that are impacting a lot of nonprofits and programs and services that are provided, you know, excluding just the federal shutdown, but things that were already happening, how do you think that will also impact things overall, just day to day with people, you know, just the cost of living and services that are being able to be provided to these who need it the most?
You're hitting on something that is, of course, an immediate problem, right? I mean, with the SNAP benefits, for instance, looking to cut off in just a matter of days. I think the hopeful signs are that you see so many people in so many different sectors in the community rallying to try to help with that. Everything from Governor Green announcing that he's going to be releasing $100 million to help allay some of those costs, to local banks providing support, to the food bank and the pantry stepping up. So I think that's all great, and I think that is also all a sign of why so many of us want to stay in Hawaii, is because you see all of these groups trying to work together to provide for those things. And one thing in terms of making sure that people don't just walk away with this thinking, okay, well, it's hopeless, I'm distraught, there's nothing to be done here. With these kind of survey results that we were taking a look at today, and I'd also encourage people to go to our website and take a look at it, holomuacollective.org. Take a look at the survey. We have dashboards. You can filter it by a bunch of different categories, including income and industry. One of the things I want people to remember is that that survey is a snapshot of a future that might happen. It's not a future that must happen. We all have choices that we could make that could impact that. And we're seeing that with some of the groups that I just mentioned that are working to try to make people's lives a little bit easier. But you can also do certain things in your own world. Like we see that one of the major issues, again, is the cost of housing. People don't have hope that they can stay in Hawaii. If you're at a family dinner and your auntie or somebody else is talking about how, oh, we're already too overcrowded, we shouldn't build more housing, push back a little bit. Talk about, hey, I'd like to be able to stay in Hawaii, but we need more houses for me to be able to afford one. Bring it home a little bit, in addition to getting involved at the political level. But make sure that you're talking to your friends and family about these things, and make sure that they see from your perspective, Auntie, maybe you could stay, but do you want me to move?
That's a very interesting idea that you would sort of become an advocate in your own community. When you're looking at, because I know Holomua does a lot of, when it comes to policy initiative, a lot of advocating. What are you hoping for in this next legislative session?
The two main things that we're focused on in this next legislative session are housing and a real focus on trying to create a dedicated local housing market. And so we know that you can't just prevent people from outside of Hawaii from buying property. That's against the federal constitution. But you can provide preferences to make sure that housing is going to people who work in Hawaii, creating that kind of workforce housing. The Hawaii Housing and Finance Development Corporation, they've got great programs. You've got groups like Housing Hawaii's Future, who's working on trying to keep that next generation here. So we're working with groups like that on the dedicated local housing market. And then the other piece, which is inextricably linked to it, is the workforce development piece. Trying to make sure that whether it is auto engineers or the healthcare workforce or teachers, that we are training enough people that they know what opportunities are out there for them to take advantage of so that they can get into these fields, some of which actually pay pretty well, and again would give them the hope that they could stay. I think we need to provide that hope so people don't leave and give them enough runway to stay in Hawaii and keep that
.org.
HolomuaCollective.org, HOLOMUA collective.org.
I encourage you to go check out the website. Very interesting survey results there. Thank you so much, Josh. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
On the
Appreciate
other
it.
side of this, we're going to be talking about domestic violence awareness. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. What you can do to help others in need. You're watching Spotlight Now.
From the moment you wake up.
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live. We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahia.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahia for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed?
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
First alert traffic is like always having a helpful passenger right next to you.
There's a crash up ahead in the left lane.
When we see a backup, we'll tell you live on TV.
That doesn't look too good.
And send an alert to your phone.
I'll type, you drive.
First alert traffic on TV, streaming, and on the Hawaii News Now app.
Keeping you and your ohana safe.
Awareness Month, but having a month that spotlights and really focuses on domestic violence is so important. It's such an important issue. It affects so many people. You know, I think it doesn't take long for each of us when we think about our families, our friends, to be personally touched by the issues of domestic violence. And so having the awareness is really important. Sometimes people who are in challenging situations and in violent situations don't even know what to do. They have no sense of hope or courage, right? And so awareness helps to get the resources out there, helps people become more aware of the resources that are there, can save lives.
You know, as we come back on there, we had some audio issues, so we apologize for not having audio in the very first seconds of this. But as we talk about this community spotlight, which again is brought to you by our friends over at Aloha United Way, they see the value of your organization working with Aloha United Way. Talk a little bit about where you guys stand right now with just funding, the importance of partners like Aloha United Way and donors to continue the work that you do, because these are challenging times.
Yes, they are. They are, and you know, in your previous with the Governor Ige, we talked a little bit about federal initiatives. The Domestic Violence Action Center has directly lost some funding because, for instance, culturally specific services are not aligned with current federal priorities, and so we have experienced that directly. But the more important impact that's very scary is the impact to our survivors. Those people who are thinking about making changes in their family, in leaving an abuser, in trying to figure out what to do next, if they do not have SNAP benefits, if they do not have health care, if they're not able to access housing, then the consequences are dire. And we're going to see that even more so, I think, in the next couple of days, when the realities of the SNAP benefits really hits. If you think about being in a situation where you need to leave an abuser, and you think about where are you going to live, you think about what are you going to do, how are you going to feed your children, the hope is gone. And so we're going to have to face that, and we're going to have to face it together. And this is going to be time when we all have to be in this together.
It's so interesting because there's the pressure on the individual that you're describing, and then there's also the pressure on the organizations that you also mentioned there. I'm curious as to how great the need is, because domestic violence, as you said, is something that many of us are familiar with personally. We may have a friend or have experienced it ourselves, but how prevalent is this in our community?
It's very prevalent. And the statistics are that, you know, in as many as 1 in 3 people have experienced domestic violence either in their own family or in their very close circle. And so not only does it affect families and children, it also affects work and employment. When you think about people within, maybe even in this office right now, who are affected by domestic violence, who are in situations that maybe are unsafe, it affects their ability to show up for work. It affects their ability to concentrate. So it has many ripple effects. The other thing that I think is really prevalent is the effect on children. And children who are exposed to domestic violence, we talk about something called ACEs, adverse childhood effects. And so exposure to violence affects an individual's health even throughout their whole life. So really important fundamental issues that we need to address.
You know, if there are people who are watching this right now who may be experiencing what you're describing, or they know someone who's in this situation, what is the best advice that you can provide to them for those who may be looking for help or may know someone that may need this help? Yeah. What is your message to those?
Please reach out for help. The Domestic Violence Action Center has a confidential helpline. It's 808-531-3771. The Coalition Against Domestic Violence, Aloha United Way, 211, Child and Family Services. There are many organizations that are available, so please reach out and go online, make a phone call. And then if you suspect that somebody is in need, be there, showing up, saying, you know, I care. Even just saying something like, I care about you and I'm worried about you, can be really, really helpful to a survivor.
Yeah, and for folks who do want to help beyond that individual connection and just want to support survivors generally, how do we all strengthen that safety net here in Hawaii?
Well, Domestic Violence Action Center has a little kind of acronym to help us think about how might we each show up and help. The first one is, let's hold abusers accountable. And so some of that's system, some of that's policy. The second one is be educated. Know and understand what domestic violence is. There are many different kinds of abuse. It's not only the bruises, it's also psychological abuse, even cyber. Digital abuse can be very, very problematic. Lead by example, and protect. So reach out and help and protect people. When you see something, say something.
Okay. This month is, as we said at the top, the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And what would just be kind of your final message? What do you hope that this month brings to the community? Obviously, it's a time for awareness and to advocate, but having this also just brings it to the forefront in communication. What do you hope that this will help do for the community to become aware of what's happening?
I think this is a time when standing together and being a community is so important. I mean, we think about all of the pressures on us as in Hawaii, but aloha, and really, the richness of us as family and ohana and aloha, our values. This is a good time for us to stand together and stand on our values.
Okay, Laurie, can you give us that number one more time?
Sure, 808-531-3771.
Okay, we encourage you to reach out if you or someone you need someone you know is in need. Laurie from DVAC, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back.
From the moment you wake up.
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live. We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahea.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahea for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed?
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
First alert traffic is like always having a helpful passenger right next to you.
There's a crash up ahead in the left lane.
When we see a backup, we'll tell you live on TV.
That doesn't look too good.
And send an alert to your phone.
I'll type, you drive.
First alert traffic on TV, streaming, and on the Hawaii News Now app.
Keeping you and your ohana safe.
Spotlight Now with Yunji Denise and Ryan Kalei-Suchi. Connecting you with newsmakers from throughout our islands. Going in depth with Hawaii's leaders. And taking your questions live. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Well, a great show catching up first off with Governor David Ige. He shared an update on some of the things that he's working on, saying, he continues to be involved with what's happening with the Western Governors Association, serving as the chair of that foundation, talking about work in really trying to equip the next generation of leaders. And you kind of heard a passionate side from the governor as he kind of got into the politics and explaining and navigating what things were like for him compared to what things are like now.
Yeah, and I thought it was very interesting, just his take on Josh Green potentially running for president, and he's saying that he was not surprised that the governor has that interest, but also talking about what it would take to launch a national campaign, and then weighing in on CD 1 and 2, saying that he obviously has a lot of confidence in Jill Takuta, and kind of questioning the policies of Brent Inawa and how those come up against the national Republican policies. And then you heard their full-throated endorsement for Ed Case.
Yeah, that's right. And the governor also talked about some of the things that were brought up during his time, some of the decisions that he had to make. Obviously, one of the criticisms that has come up recently has been the way that he handled cooling classrooms and sort of the way that the budget worked out and the cost of how much that ended up costing the state. But the governor's saying, hey, I had to do with what I did at the time. He has no regrets. Obviously, he says we wish we could have done things a little bit differently, but he felt confident that he was doing the right thing at that time to help cool the schools.
Yeah, also hear him there on Aloha Stadium and defending his reluctance to do that public-private partnership, something that he did not advocate for, and sounds like he still has a lot of skepticism about, because he says that developers will have housing as a priority over the stadium itself. So interesting there, and he's running 3 times a week and lifting weights.
That's right.
And then you heard in our second guest, we talked to Josh Wisch from Holomua Collective, and just some really sobering statistics about the state of the middle class here in Hawaii.
Yeah, if you missed that portion, be sure to check it out, or you can head over to their website to get an idea of what this survey has shown, especially with the migration of individuals who are not only leaving the state, but also considering and planning to leave the state because of a variety of reasons, including the cost of housing.
Yeah, and in our last segment, we talked to the folks at DVAC, that's Domestic Violence Action Center, talking about Domestic Violence Awareness Month and really what that means for survivors, how we can all help. And interesting to hear, I mean, it all sort of comes together that these federal policies that we're seeing, the end of SNAP benefits, how that could really affect people who are considering leaving a dangerous situation and maybe preventing them from being able to do so.
Yeah, we'll have to continue to watch what happens from Washington, D.C. as that shutdown continues, and as we're hearing more and more about how those SNAP benefits could disappear for many people, not only nationwide, especially here in Hawaii, and how members of the community are trying to rally together. So we want to thank our guests for coming on, and also those nonprofits who continue to do great work in our community. Join us next week. We're going to be focusing in on law and order.
That's right. We'll be talking to Roddy Vanek. He is the interim chief of the Honolulu Police Department, and Steve Alm, Honolulu City Prosecutor, about what it means to operate with a force, on the police side, 400 officers or so short. How's he doing that? What does it mean for public safety? Catch up with us and the chief and the prosecutor next week right here on Spotlight Now.
Aloha.